With the impending addition of Bleach into Fortnite, of all places, I figured now was a great time to talk about another new Bleach game that I hadn't quite gotten round to discussing yet, and that's Bleach Soul Resonance. Initially, I wasn't sure if it was even worth talking about Soul Resonance, but having played it for about a month now, ever since the game first launched, and with the arrival of Aizen as a playable unit in the game today, well, I have to hold my hands up and say the game is actually rather good, and I think if you're a Bleach fan, it's definitely worth your time, as long as you know what it is that you're getting into. Now, I've been an unabashed fan of Bleach Brave Souls for many years now, and have made numerous videos on the game too. I think Brave Souls has actually contributed a lot to the franchise overall, and no doubt played a huge part in helping keep the community alive and interested during the years of Bleach's downtime. But playing Soul Resonance now for, like I said, a month or so, and it's clear that this game feels like the most modern iteration of a Bleach game on mobile to date, and something that the series has sorely needed for a while now, at least if you care about the mobile space. Now, I want to quickly break here and say that this video is not sponsored at all. The Soul Resonance team did reach out to me prior to the game's official release, but then I never heard anything from them again. So needless to say, I've got no ulterior motive for telling you this other than I really like this game for the most part. Now, is it your pretty standard mobile gacha game fare? Yes. While I'm not incredibly well versed in mobile gaming, to be honest, the game looks and feels to me like some of the more modern titles on the market right now, like the Hoyoverse games, for instance, Zenless Zone Zero, that sort of thing. But there's a definite novelty to seeing Bleach receiving this kind of love, and this does feel like a premium product, at least as much as one of these anime gacha games can, and one designed to hopefully last for many years to come. So, like I said, I know I'm a bit late to this, but it's finally time to take a look at Bleach Soul Resonance. I'm no expert at these games, I only really play them because it's cool to have another way to connect with the Bleach universe on the go, but I can at least bring you my thoughts and impressions after a month of playing from that perspective. Before we get started, if you enjoyed today's video, you found some value in it, you want to see more like this, again, maybe not quite like this, but consider hitting subscribe down below, as it really does help the channel out, and I do greatly appreciate it. And also consider checking out my other channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games, where we could have been talking about this game, but as with the Fortnite collab, it kind of just makes sense to talk about it here, but still, consider checking that channel out and supporting it as well. If you like what you see, it does make a huge difference. Now, the Bleach gaming landscape is currently looking healthier than it has done in a very long time, which is fantastic and a great indicator of the current power of the brand. While Bleach Soul Resonance is just the latest title to be released, last year saw the arrival of Bleach Soul Puzzle, which kind of came and went, I think, and earlier this year, the much-anticipated Bleach Rebirth of Souls, the series' first built-for-console game in almost 15 years, finally came out, and its first DLC season pass just wrapped up with the release of Yuhabak. Bleach Brave Souls is still trucking along in the background and is in the process of closing out its 10th anniversary celebrations, an incredible milestone for a game of this caliber, although I've been seeing a lot of negative community sentiment swirling around both the game and its anniversary lately, while a rumoured new Bleach game, currently operating under the codename Mirror's High, is in the works and may very well be revealed at Jump Festa in a couple of days. And, like I mentioned earlier, Bleach is coming to Fortnite tomorrow at the time of recording, which is a pretty big deal whether you like Fortnite or not. So it's safe to say that currently things are looking pretty healthy on the gaming side of the franchise, with multiple concurrent projects and even future teases still to come. But I have to say, at least in the mobile space, I'm not sure we really need anything new right now. It kind of feels like Soul Resonance is doing an excellent job and has kind of got that side of things locked down, even with Brave Souls still carrying on. But what is Bleach Soul Resonance? Well, like I said, if you've played any of these mobile gacha games before, you'll have a fairly good idea of what to expect here. The game calls itself a next-gen action RPG, and I guess to some extent that's pretty accurate, at least for a mobile title. But Soul Resonance is, without a doubt, one of the best looking games I think I've ever played on mobile. But we'll get into all of that in a moment. For now, though, yes, it is an action RPG that allows you to collect characters and weapons and use them to build teams of 3 as you take on the Bleach storyline across various missions and boss battles. Like I said, Aizen himself was released earlier today, and he's currently only the second limited unit to have been added to the game. The first was Hitsugaya, and the cadence seems to be roughly a character every 2 weeks or so, which is pretty normal for these kinds of games. So yeah, in that sense, it does actually sound a lot like Bleach Brave Souls, and in reality, the actual structure of the game does feel quite familiar. Like I said, you have the main Bleach story to make your way through. I believe it's up to the Waco Mundo arc already, though I haven't finished it yet myself, and you can do so on various different difficulties as well. Meanwhile, limited time events such as the current Aizen event that dropped today help to spice things up a bit every few weeks as well. Other than that, there are a variety of other missions to make your way through too, such as supply runs, community-driven raid boss battles, trial towers, and more, all kind of with the goal, ultimately, of powering up your characters, powering up your teams, but also earning the game's currency, which is spiritual jades, which ultimately I think you then want to turn into limited gacha tickets to try and summon for the characters that you want, which at the moment there aren't that many. Honestly, though, the amount of actual content in the game surprised me, and if the team can keep the schedule going, then I think it's going to work out well. Where the game differs in a big way to something like Bleach Brave Souls, and yes, to something like Rebirth of Souls 2, is in its genre, action RPG, which is what I've always wanted from a modern Bleach game. Now, would I rather have a console-focused action RPG that strips away the more inherently predatory nature of a mobile game? Of course, but for now, until that's announced, I'll take what I can get, and the gameplay of Soul Resonance is as close to that as I think we've come so far. It's an extremely fast-paced game centered around attacking, dodging, and countering, all the while switching between your team members and utilizing their special abilities, their buffs, and their powers where best. Starting up a mission as Kisuke, for example, and cutting away at an enemy before sending out a portable Yigai, leaping back and launching a pair of energy blasts with Benahime, having used Kisuke to build up your team's overall attack stat, then switching out to Byakuya and comboing his Shikai release with Bankai Ichigo's oppressive DPS feels fantastic, and the addition of Hitsugaya and now Aizen have only further deepened that pool. And that team of 3 that I just mentioned, Kisuke, Byakuya, Ichigo, they're only one such team, operating under the slash-type damage umbrella, but there are other characters too. Yoroichi, Komamura, Tosen, Ikaku, for example, who all have their own styles as well. And the overall combat mechanics, the style of play, has got me genuinely excited to see how the team tackles other characters down the road, and I almost can't wait for us to get through the usual Bleach cast, and to the units that I know I'll find ultimately more interesting to use, like the Sternritter, for example. One of the things that really separates Soul Resonance from the likes of Bleach Brave Souls, though, and I think this is indicative of the game being more modern, and I guess this is what brings it in line with those more modern mobile games, its contemporary fare, is the existence of a persistent hub to run around and complete mini-missions in, which helps to make the game feel bigger even if it's mostly superficial. Where Soul Resonance really shines, though, in my opinion, is in the game's visuals, and this is where, as a Bleach fan first and foremost, and a mobile gacha fan, well, I guess second, this is where I feel like I can really heap praise on the game from my perspective. And this is a stunning looking title, and it brings Bleach to life in a wonderful way. The game marks a significant departure from Bleach Brave Souls' chibi style, which I have always found endearing, by instead tailoring its visual style closer to that of the actual anime itself, and so the characters look more like themselves in regards to their proportions and whatnot, which ultimately I do prefer, even if, like I said, I did like Brave Souls' style. Prior to the game's release, Soul Resonance rightly came under fire for what looked like some pretty blatant generative AI use in many of its promotional images, including a particularly egregious shot of the Kurosaki household, which included a warped background, missing limbs, and more. Now, thankfully, I haven't encountered anything of the sort since the game's actual release. So whether the response the team got to this art scared them off of using it, I don't know, but I'm glad to not see it here, as it compromises an otherwise fantastic looking title, and they simply don't need to be doing it when they're otherwise producing this kind of work. Plus, Bleach is a series that's known for its phenomenal art, and its absolutely top tier character designs, and so images like this only serve to do the series a disservice. But with that said, the game's actual attention to detail, when handcrafted with care by a team that definitely seems to love and revere Bleach, is obvious and has made me smile numerous times. I absolutely love, as I said earlier, that one of Kisuke's special abilities in the game is him blowing up and sending forth his portable Gigai to use as a distraction. It's so clever, and an excellent means of diversifying the character's moveset in a way that is completely faithful to the manga. The same goes for other characters too, Byakuya initiating his Senka strike with a slow motion yet highly dramatic spin slash is awesome, and once his bankai is activated, I'm a big fan of being able to then manually control the additional attacks with a press of a button as Byakuya weaves the blades through the air with his hand. Also, the general effect of Senbon Sakura in this game looks absolutely brilliant, and in my opinion blows away even the likes of Rebirth of Souls, and to be honest, may even look slightly better than the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime, turning Byakuya's Shikai and then Bankai into a almost neon brilliant pink mist that I think looks really, really effective. And in fact, the special effects in this game are what elevate the visuals to the next level. With Hitsugaya, I love how the game incorporated his Bankai into his playstyle. Initially, he starts out with just his Shikai, but once you're able to use his ultimate over time, he transforms and can utilize abilities like Ryusenka, or of course Hyoten Hyakoso. And fighting in real time as you would in an action RPG does make it feel that extra bit intuitive and makes you feel a little more involved. And again, going back to how I feel about how Senbon Sakura looks, overall, the game just looks incredible, and there have been multiple instances where I've thought that Soul Resonance is by far the best looking Bleach game on the market. One such area is Byakuya's Shikai, but like I said, this extends to basically every single special effect in the game. This is a tiny detail, but it's astounding to me how much better ice, in general, looks in this game than it does in Rebirth of Souls. Here in Soul Resonance, it has a lovely, very satisfying quality to it, a pale light blue with a glassy, translucent effect which shines when, say, Hitsugaya activates Bankai or Rukia uses Tsukishiro. Aizen's abilities, including of course his signature Hado 90 Kurohitsugi, all look phenomenal and ooze this dark purple power, and again the Bankai Ichigo unit, like Hitsugaya, gains the ability to use a transformation as his ultimate, only his dons his hollow mask and changes up his moveset into one that feels ferocious and wild. Needless to say, I've been more than a bit impressed with how the game looks, and again I don't mean to compare the two so explicitly, but they are the two highest profile Bleach game releases within the span of the last 12 months, and much was said of the absurd disparity in the quality of story cutscenes between Soul Resonance and Rebirth of Souls. Where Rebirth of Souls looked honestly pretty antiquated, stiff, and rigid, which was a big shame considering the quality of the character models in that game. Soul Resonance's cutscenes are animated surprisingly well. I mean, I guess that's all the gacha money for you at work. And also, to be completely fair, the vast majority of Soul Resonance's cutscenes don't even seem to be finished, and I've been breezing through much of the remainder of the story mode at lightning speeds because it's all under review currently, which again feels like the nature of mobile gaming, unfortunately. This was never going to be a finished package on day one, so again, how much that bothers you is going to be a personal preference. And speaking of which, speaking of how much elements of this game might bother you, again, the majority of what I love about the game so far comes down to how it looks, and yeah, how it plays, which is significant. But if you're not used to mobile gaming, or to gacha gaming, then you'll run into some roadblocks that you may not appreciate. This is still a game that's designed to be played daily, potentially for short bursts at a time, and ultimately is never likely to be a wholly satisfying experience. the game is chock full of the usual mobile malaise, such as a brutal shard system for some of the most powerful items in the game, and the shards themselves are really only accessible via a completely random mission drop, itself only playable with a limited currency. While I like how the game plays from the perspective of feeling a little more real time and more like a traditional action RPG and being faithful to the characters, at the end of the day, this is all fairly basic stuff. The team building aspect of the game is mostly quite shallow, at least at the moment, while the character roster is still fairly small, and ultimately it's a mobile game. Those who have the most money to spend are going to have a leg up, though thankfully there isn't any PvP in the game yet for the effects of that to truly be felt, which I'm okay with. And of course, the game wants you to spend at every juncture pretty much, which again, I'm mostly okay with. It's mostly able to be ignored. Although I could do without the expensive bundles being thrown up on the screen, you are very reliant on the energy system, which doesn't feel particularly generous. But again, this is all completely standard gacha fare. While it doesn't make it right, those that are very used to these systems by now, systems that have proliferated in the mobile gacha space specifically for the last decade, won't be too surprised. Those are the kinds of hurdles that you'll have to either square away when playing, or simply choose to avoid. For me, I like to play these games to get the characters that I enjoy. Hell, it was Aizen's arrival that spurred me to actually talk about this game here on the channel. And that's really about it. I'm not here to experience the Bleach storyline. This is not the way I would choose to experience it. Although, like I said, the cutscenes, when they exist, are animated very well. And there's clearly a lot of effort that's gone into them. Also, there's a part of me that's like, we've played through this part of the Bleach story ad nauseum at this point. I was really kind of hoping that they maybe would lead with some Thousand Year Blood War Arc stuff, but clearly we're going to have to wait for that. But I don't really feel like I'm running out of things to do, or that I'm too constrained by that aforementioned stamina system, but then I don't play that much in the grand scheme of things. If you've noticed differently, do let me know down in the comments. While we've briefly compared some of the surface level qualities of this and the likes of Rebirth of Souls, in reality Soul Resonance is much closer to something like Brave Souls. Rebirth of Souls is very much its own thing and is a complete package, especially with the DLC. Really the only way these games are comparable, and that's how we have done so far in this video, is on a surface level, like I said, in terms of their visual quality. Also, can we not use the word soul in the title of the next Bleach game, please? But at least for now, the future of Soul Resonance, I would say, looks fairly bright, as does the future of Bleach games, which is great. While I've been working on this video, the skins for the Fortnite collaboration have been revealed. It's happening tomorrow. I knew Rukia was going to be weirdly tall, and it is an exciting time to be a Bleach fan for sure. Your mileage is going to vary with Soul Resonance in a big way, but as someone who was a huge fan and a long-time player of Brave Souls, I'm pretty happy for the most part. The game exceeded my expectations in the areas that matter the most to me, which is the visuals and the overall faithfulness to the series, the small details and all of that, the aspects of the game that make me think it was in fact built by Bleach fans. I'm very excited to see what Mirror's High turns out to be whenever that game is revealed, and I'm still crossing my fingers for a console Bleach Souls-like. That's my personal dream Bleach game. Until then, I think Soul Resonance is worth a download, and if you want to add me as a friend, my ID is on the screen. For some reason I have a North American ID, even though my Google account is clearly in the UK. So that's really weird and kind of annoying, but there you go. Alright everyone, but that's it for today's video, a fairly short one looking at Bleach Soul Resonance, the calm before the storm, as the Core 4 trailer is very much on the horizon. It is happening on Sunday, and I'll have a live reaction for you on Sunday, and then we'll finally be able to start talking about Core 4 in a big and meaningful way. But for now, if you're hankering for some extra Bleach on the side, I'd definitely say give Soul Resonance a download, check it out, let me know what you think down in the comments below, I'd love to know. Alright everyone, once again, thank you so very much for watching. Consider hitting subscribe down below if you enjoyed this video. Check out my other channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games, and as always, a massive thank you and an everlasting shout out goes out to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon, who I do appreciate so very much. Your support does mean the absolute world to me, and honestly, I couldn't keep doing this without you at the moment, so it does mean everything. Thank you all once again. Alright guys, until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.